There is a peculiar moment that occurs in almost every life. Though most people pass through it without noticing, you are speaking with someone you have known for years. The conversation appears ordinary. The words are familiar. The gestures are familiar. Yet something shifts. A small expression crosses the face. A hesitation appears where certainty once lived. A tone emerges that does not belong to the sentence being spoken. And suddenly you sense that what is happening on the surface is not what is happening underneath. The disturbing thing is that this moment does not reveal something unusual about human beings. It reveals something normal. I have often noticed that people greatly overestimate the importance of conscious intention. They believe that because they know what they are doing, they therefore know why they are doing it. Yet these are entirely different questions. A man may work tirelessly for success and genuinely believe he seeks financial security. A woman may devote herself to helping others and sincerely believe compassion is her motive. A friend may offer advice while claiming only concern for your well-being. The conscious explanation may even contain some truth. But the deeper motive frequently remains hidden, not because the individual wishes to deceive others, but because he has already deceived himself. The unconscious has a remarkable ability to disguise its intentions beneath explanations that appear perfectly reasonable. Human beings are rarely as transparent to themselves as they imagine. You can observe this phenomenon in the smallest interactions. Imagine someone receiving praise. The compliment is simple and harmless. Yet their response seems strangely intense. Perhaps they dismiss it immediately. Perhaps they expand upon it excessively. Perhaps they become visibly uncomfortable. The compliment itself is not the important event. The important event is the hidden movement occurring beneath it. Something inside the person has been touched. An invisible structure has been disturbed. What interests me is that the reaction often reveals more than years of conversation. Human behavior becomes intelligible only when you stop examining actions in isolation and begin examining the psychological need being served by those actions. Every repeated behavior protects something, pursues something, avoids something, or compensates for something. The behavior is visible, the motive is concealed. Most people imagine they make decisions because they possess beliefs. In reality, they often possess beliefs because those beliefs support a psychological necessity. This is a far more unsettling realization. You may think your opinions emerged from objective observation. Yet if those opinions vanished tomorrow, what part of your identity would disappear with them? What fear would emerge? What insecurity would become visible? I have frequently observed individuals defending positions with extraordinary passion, not because the position itself mattered deeply, but because the position had become attached to their sense of self. The argument was never the argument. The argument was protection. Human beings often defend emotions disguised as ideas. There is a curious image that comes to mind when I consider this. Imagine an old theater standing at the center of a city. Every evening a different performance appears upon the stage. The costumes change. The dialogue changes. The actors change. Yet beneath the stage exists a hidden machinery of ropes, pulleys, gears, and corridors that the audience never sees. Most people spend their lives watching the performance. Very few descend beneath the stage. Yet it is beneath the stage that the true movement occurs. Human behavior resembles this theater. Actions are performances. Explanations are performances. Social identities are performances. The hidden machinery remains concealed. And because it remains concealed, people mistake the performance for the cause. One of the strongest motives governing human behavior is the desire to preserve a stable image of oneself. This motive influences far more than most realize. A person may remain in a career they dislike because abandoning it would threaten the image they have constructed. Another may continue a friendship long after affection has vanished because ending it would require admitting uncomfortable truths about themselves. Even apparent acts of rebellion frequently serve the same motive. Some individuals spend their lives attempting to appear independent, unique, or unconventional. Yet the effort itself becomes another prison. The persona changes costume, but the hidden motive remains identical. Human beings are less concerned with truth than with maintaining psychological continuity. The self-image must survive. Even when reality demands revision, observe what happens during criticism. A criticism may be minor. It may even be accurate. Yet the reaction often exceeds the situation. Why? Because criticism rarely threatens behavior alone. It threatens identity. The person feels not merely corrected but endangered. In such moments, the unconscious begins its work. Rationalizations emerge. Explanations appear. Defenses multiply. The mind behaves like an attorney attempting to defend a client whose guilt has already been established. Most arguments are not searches for truth. They are negotiations between reality and identity. I have often found that envy offers another revealing window into hidden motives. People dislike admitting envy because it contradicts the image they prefer to hold. Therefore, envy frequently disguises itself. It becomes criticism. It becomes moral judgment. It becomes indifference. Someone sees another person's success and immediately begins explaining why that success is undeserved. The explanation may sound reasonable, yet if one looks carefully, another process is occurring. The achievement of another person has illuminated an unlived possibility within the observer. The discomfort does not originate from the successful individual. It originates from the confrontation with one's own neglected potential. Human beings frequently attack what secretly fascinates them. This is one of the great paradoxes of human nature. What makes unconscious motives so powerful is that they are experienced indirectly. You do not encounter them as motives. You encounter them as feelings, impulses, preferences, and certainties. The individual pursuing status rarely experiences the pursuit as status-seeking. He experiences it as ambition, excellence, responsibility, or necessity. The individual seeking approval rarely experiences the pursuit as approval-seeking. She experiences it as kindness, duty, or social harmony. The unconscious motive wears masks precisely because direct recognition would threaten the existing structure of personality. The psyche protects itself by hiding its deepest intentions from conscious awareness. This becomes especially visible in social situations. Consider a gathering where several people engage in conversation. On the surface, information is being exchanged. Yet beneath the conversation, countless invisible negotiations occur. People seek recognition. They seek belonging. They seek influence. They seek validation. They seek protection from embarrassment. They seek confirmation of their importance. A simple remark may serve multiple motives simultaneously. The spoken content is only one layer of communication. The psychological transaction occurring beneath it is often far more significant. Most communication is not the exchange of information. It is the management of psychological position. One of the most revealing experiences occurs when someone no longer receives the response they expect. A delayed reply, a lack of acknowledgement, an absence of appreciation. Suddenly, emotions appear that seem disproportionate to the event. Yet the event itself is rarely the true cause. The interruption has exposed a hidden dependency. A psychological contract has been violated. Human beings often carry unspoken agreements into relationships. They offer attention, expecting loyalty. They offer support, expecting gratitude. They offer affection, expecting security. When the expected return fails to appear, the hidden motive becomes visible. The relationship was never entirely what it seemed. People become attached to the version of themselves that others recognize. This attachment shapes enormous portions of human behavior. The danger is that recognition eventually becomes more important than authenticity. Then the individual begins acting not according to reality, but according to expectation. What appears to be freedom gradually becomes performance. The persona is one of the most misunderstood realities in psychology. Many assume the persona is simply dishonesty. This is incorrect. The persona is necessary. Society could not function without it. Every role requires a mask. the teacher, the parent, the leader, the employee. The friend all require certain adaptations. The problem emerges when the individual forgets the mask is a mask. Then the role consumes the person. The hidden motive shifts from participation in life toward preservation of the role itself. One begins protecting appearances rather than confronting reality. The performance becomes more important than the performer. I once described the unconscious as that which we do not know about ourselves. Yet this definition remains incomplete. The unconscious is not merely what is unknown. It is also what is actively avoided. Certain truths threaten the structure of identity so profoundly that the psyche develops elaborate strategies to keep them hidden. Projection is one such strategy. Instead of recognizing an unwanted quality within oneself, one perceives it everywhere else. The individual obsessed with dishonesty detects dishonesty constantly. The individual consumed by status notices status everywhere. The individual driven by power discovers power struggles in every interaction. What appears to be perception is often autobiography. Here, the hidden motive behind much human behavior becomes increasingly visible. Human beings are not merely responding to reality. They are responding to internal realities projected outward. They are pursuing unfinished psychological business. They are attempting to resolve tensions they barely understand. They are seeking experiences that confirm existing identities. They are avoiding experiences that threaten them. The external world becomes a stage upon which internal conflicts play themselves out repeatedly. This is why people often find themselves living the same pattern with different faces, different environments, and different circumstances. The scenery changes. The script remains astonishingly similar. Return now to the old theatre. Imagine descending beneath the stage. The audience has gone home. The lights are dim. Dust hangs in the air. There you discover not a grand control room but a maze of corridors. Some lead nowhere. Some contain forgotten machinery. Some reveal mechanisms no longer needed. Yet the performances above continue to depend upon them. Human psychology is remarkably similar. Much of what governs present behavior was constructed long ago and never re-examined. Motives continue operating long after their original purpose has been forgotten. The individual believes he is choosing freely while invisible structures quietly influence perception, emotion, and decision. A particularly unsettling realization emerges when you begin noticing how often virtue itself can conceal motive. Generosity may contain generosity, but it may also contain the need to be admired. Honesty may contain honesty, but it may also contain superiority. Courage may contain courage, but it may also contain the inability to tolerate vulnerability. This does not mean virtue is false. It means human motives are layered. Rarely does a single action emerge from a single cause. The psyche resembles a landscape rather than a machine. Multiple forces intersect simultaneously. The conscious mind prefers simple explanations because simplicity creates certainty. Reality is rarely so accommodating. Human beings adapt remarkably well to rewards. What they rarely notice is how quickly rewards become identities. And once identity becomes attached to reward, freedom begins to disappear. The person no longer pursues the reward. The reward begins pursuing the person. Individuation begins where self-deception becomes difficult to maintain. This does not mean perfection. It does not mean purity. It means increasing honesty regarding one's own motives. The individuated person does not assume noble intentions automatically. He becomes curious about himself. He notices contradictions. He observes emotional reactions without immediately justifying them. He asks uncomfortable questions. Why did that criticism affect me so deeply? Why does that person's success disturb me? Why do I need this particular outcome? Why does this approval matter? Such questions do not produce immediate answers. Yet they create space between behavior and identification. And in that space, consciousness begins to expand. The tragedy is that many people spend entire lives examining others while avoiding themselves. They become experts in external observation, yet remain strangers to their own motives. The hidden machinery continues operating. The performances continue. The explanations become increasingly sophisticated, yet the fundamental mystery remains untouched. The individual understands everyone except himself. This is more common than most imagine. There comes a stage in psychological development when the question changes. Instead of asking what people are doing, you begin asking, what need is being served? Instead of asking what someone says, you ask what psychological function the statement performs. Instead of asking whether an explanation sounds convincing, you ask what remains hidden behind the explanation. The world becomes less obvious and more intelligible at the same time. You begin seeing motives where previously you saw only actions. You begin noticing invisible currents beneath visible events. And then something peculiar occurs. You discover that the hidden motive behind most human behavior is neither evil nor noble. It is simply the endless attempt of the psyche to maintain a coherent sense of itself. The individual seeks admiration, security, belonging, influence, certainty, affection, recognition, significance, not merely because these things are pleasant, but because each helps preserve a fragile psychological continuity. The self is constantly trying to confirm itself. Every interaction becomes part of this effort. Every preference participates in it. Every conflict reveals it. The old theater remains open. New performances appear each night. Different costumes, different stories, different actors, yet somewhere beneath the stage. In corridors most people never enter. The machinery continues, moving quietly in the dark, waiting for the rare moment when someone stops watching the performance long enough to wonder who or what is pulling the ropes.